guys, welcome to Wickedly Judged, the podcast dedicated to exposing wrongful convictions and fighting for justice reform in America. I'm Rebecca, your host, and if you're new here, this show is for anyone who believes that justice isn't just a verdict. It's a promise, a process, and far too often, a fight. Here at Wickedly Judged, we shine a light on the cracks in our justice system by sharing the real stories, true life of those who have been wrongfully accused, convicted, and forgotten by the courts. We give a voice to their families, advocates, and survivors who refuse to accept injustice as the end of their story. Before we dive in, a quick thank you to our sponsors, Veteran Alliance, Yarn Therapy for Me, Justin Apron, Liberty First Radio, NDVLB, Prime Ledger Group, JSIL, and Wickedly Judged Justice Activation Project. And a special thanks to JP Verse of Versefire Records, providing our powerful intro and outro music. Your guys' support fuels our mission. Thank you so much for standing with us in the fight to expose wrongful convictions and demanding true justice in America. Hey guys, welcome back to Wickedly Judged. Today we're going to be interviewing Pete and Heather Wlasiuk. Pete is an Army veteran who has been incarcerated for 25 years for a murder that he did not commit. All right guys, I have on the phone with me Pete and Heather Wlasiuk. How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good, Rebecca.
Pretty good. Grateful to be here. Thank you.
So Pete, after reviewing your case and reading through court documents and stuff, I've noticed that for 25 years you have been incarcerated, and for 25 years you have maintained your innocence. So why is it that you feel that you were wrongfully convicted?
I'm innocent. I didn't do what they claimed I did. I've been fighting because I'm innocent. They took an accident and turned it into murder. I just pretty much, I can't admit to something I didn't do. And I am that type of person. My current wife, Heather, would tell you, I like to do everything straight on, and if I'm wrong, slap down the hand. If it makes no sense to just saying you're innocent if you're not innocent, but I wouldn't even know how to pretend I was guilty. So I've been choosing to lay down and choosing to die.
Well, I don't know if you know or not, but I had a nice interview with the PI that's on your case, David Beers. And he was bringing up some things about the jurors. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for us?
Yes. Well, I've had 3 trials. I keep putting the evidence forward that shows I'm innocent, and they keep countering it, and pretty much what I feel corruption. So I believe it's the second trial when, well, it would have to be the second trial because that's the only trial where we had. What I had was a juror by the name of Dr. Lentini. He's a podiatrist. And time of the accident, it's a small community I live in, Rebecca. So everybody pretty much knows everybody. And my late wife was a registered nurse at the emergency room at the hospital. And they have a thing that's called voir dire. And that's where they question the jurors because in a perfect world, trying to find you people that are going to judge you based on only the evidence, fairness. You can't come to the table with any type of hidden thoughts or agendas or anything like that. But unfortunately, in this world, that doesn't work out that way. Dr. Lentini, like I said, he's a podiatrist. He had our entertainment coordinator that we had for business. She was a patient of his who was a close friend of ours. My wife had a visit with him. I believe my late wife, excuse me, we'll refer to her from as Patty here on out so we don't get confused.
Okay.
Patty is, I think the kids, when they needed special footwear, she had brought them over there. But the most amazing part is that Dr. Lentini, he worked at the emergency room. He went up to the hospital where Patty worked. And we found out after the fact that he had told the police that he had heard rumors or that they should go up and they should talk to her coworkers, or he just became like he was part of the investigation. He was actually getting them phone numbers or stuff like that. Not that he personally could tell them anything, like Patty had come to me and said this, or I knew Pete did that. He was just doing things that you don't want people to do when you're trying to find a fair jury. But in the process, he wanted so bad on the jury, he lied. He just told them he didn't know nothing about the case. He didn't know me. He didn't know. So, unfortunately, it wasn't until later on in the trial that we found out that we had a rogue ringer in the jury pool. My second trial was one that I feel, best represented in. A lot of the evidence came out, and a lot of the corruption and a lot of the evidence of tampering came out during that trial. And they just fought it tooth and nail. Like I said, the jury was deadlocked for about 2.5 days. They were deliberating, and they had come to a deadlock. And if you'd like, I could tell you the story of what happened in the jury room regarding this particular juror. Would you like to hear that? Or
Absolutely, please.
Okay, what had happened was the jury was deadlocked. They were coming up and they were asking questions, and we could tell by the questions, I should say my legal representation at the time, which included Mr. Beers, was what I guess on a defense team's position of going our way. Day after day, they were asking questions. Then they came up and they asked about a particular evidence block. Now, there's a whole behind-the-scenes thing that most people don't understand. When you put things in as evidence, it's because you want to speak to a witness about it.
Right.
So I got to give you an example. So if you had a Sears catalog and you wanted to, God, I don't even know if Sears is in business anymore. So if you had a catalog, and there was an item on page, say, 69, but it's a 392-page catalog, you can't just say, I want to talk about page 69. You have to put catalog in as an exhibit. Then when the lawyer questions the witness, they draw your attention to page 69, and they're making a record. Record is so that everyone is very understanding. You're not supposed to be looking at page 3. You're not supposed to be looking at page 300. You're supposed to be looking at page 69. my lawyer at the time had put this exhibit in for something else. And what it was is they were playing games and they were avoiding. And the judge said, well, do you want to just put the whole thing as an exhibit? And he says, you know what, let's put the whole thing in as an exhibit. Now, this is like a multi-page document. Turn around, and he made his point as a defense attorney using the page that he wanted to. Now, fast forward to deliberations, the jury's fighting. I had a really good jury at the time. And I mean, they were fighting and arguing. The bailiffs would come up and say, wow, they're really fighting for you. We can hear them arguing. We can hear them, really going to bat for you. And I must say, Rebecca, as a defendant, I felt hope because compared to my first trial, where the whole jury had me, before I even walked, it was just refreshing that I heard that an actual jury was arguing. And they were deadlocked. They went home that day. They came back the next day. They said that, and I have the benefit of, and I have the affidavits and everything from that juror. So when I say they, that's who I'm speaking to or speaking about. They said they came in first thing in the morning. He beelined to the evidence table, and there's a mountain of stuff on this table. And he frantically sifted through it, and he pulls out, lo and behold, this exhibit book. He's thumbing through the pages, until he finally finds what he's looking for and turns around and points it to the other jurors. Now, I'd like to speculate for a second because I know my case. I've had a lot of people. There's mountains and mountains and mountains of paperwork. And I've often felt, and I may never be able to prove it, but I've often felt like somebody called him that night and said, what's the hang up? What's going on with the jury? They told him this potato page because, I'm sorry, something that wasn't even spoken on during the trial. There's no way a juror can come in and laser focus, pinpoint, precision, look for a particular page. And on this particular page, it was a New York State laboratory worksheet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hindsight, and after speaking to the jury was in favor of acquitting me, and at that time, the only juror that wasn't in favor of acquitting me was Jim Santini. And they turned around and they said, we do not believe the state's witness on this. We do not believe the lead investigator on that. We don't believe a crime happened here. So they, and I hate to admit this part, but it actually turned into like a contest. I lost my freedom. I lost my life on a bet because they told, they said, they were screaming. They were cursing at each other. They were screaming at each other. They were fighting. I guess what you think in the movies is what you think goes on in jury rooms. And James Santini turned around and told them, well, this is evidence right here. And what it was, the jurors had all made an agreement. They said, show me one piece of evidence that wasn't generated or put forth by a person who had an axe to grind with Peter or had an agenda to move, or the evidence itself didn't seem like it was tampered. James Santini provided it as a document, and it was a New York State laboratory form. And they said, okay, these people got nothing to gain. They don't even know Peter. They're just doing their job. Peter's a number on a workbench. Lo and behold, on this form, there's a notation up in the top right-hand corner. I mean, it's like a paragraph. It's handwritten. It's in pencil. And the jury mistakenly thought that was the lab tech's findings, like that the New York State Police were saying this. So based on that, they took that because the bet was, if we take this up to the judge and he says it's evidence, will you find him guilty? And the one juror says, fine, I'm telling you it's not evidence. This was not presented to the jury. This was not even brought up in the courtroom. So if the judge says that this isn't evidence, are you going to acquit him and let that man go home right now? He said yes. Well, they came up, and one juror being a male, or two jurors actually, male and female, they were like proud and, like their ego was. And then when he said to the judge, is this evidence? Now, the judge turned around and said, well, there's a long answer and there's a short answer. And the long answer would have been, it is in evidence, but it wasn't testified to, it wasn't presented, it wasn't, so instead of just telling them that this wasn't testified to, you're stuck here, he said there was a long answer and there was a short answer. So it was more along the lines of, in the interest of saving time, yes, it's in evidence. And based on that is how they secured the second wrongful conviction. So when the trial ended, my lawyers and Dave, and they immediately, they're allowed to question the jurors if they're willing to speak to them. And my lawyer at the time, which he was a great lawyer, he said to him, he said, what happened? And they broke it all down to him. They said, we didn't believe any of the state's witnesses, and we said, show us one person that, lo and behold, they were like, there was a report that said this and this and this and this. And my own lawyer was like, show me. And he had a copy of all the exhibits. He pulled it out, and they pointed to it, and they said, that's not the lab tech's handwriting. That is the lead investigator's handwriting. And they were like, oh, my God, we thought that was the lab tech guy. You got to get Peter back in here. And then the lawyer was like, well, sorry, our judicial system doesn't work that way. Once the gavel drops and they find you guilty, now you got to go through the next process. And that's what we did. We went for 3/3. If I'm wrong, don't quote me. Maybe it was 3:30 hearing or a speeding trial, whatever. After the fact, right then and there, we did motions, we did everything. We got the affidavits from the jurors, and I'm going to share something with the world, or through your world, Rebecca.
Okay.
A lot of people don't even know, because this is how our judicial system works. Within days, where we go up there and we have a hearing. My lawyer did a motion. He attached all the affidavits and everything. And the prosecution puts up their argument. My defense attorney put up his argument, and he asked for everything to be heard on the motion, which means what he's also included as case law and documentation. And when it happened, he reserved to rule. What that means is that they don't give you an answer right then and there. So we went in one doorway, prosecution and the judge, they went into the judge's chambers. We were outside in the hallway, and it was Dave, there was my lawyer, it was transports. And what they didn't realize is the door was ajar in the judge's chambers. I and the people heard the prosecutor and the judge speaking, and immediately the prosecutor started out with, I have a witness that's going out of the country, Your Honor. I have another witness that's going on vacation. I have another witness that's got to testify in another trial. And the judge just stopped him and he said, Joe, why are you telling me all this? And he says, well, Your Honor, based on everything I just heard in the courtroom, I can't help but to feel that you're going to be inclined to grant Mr. Wlasiuk a new trial. And the judge turned around and says, relax, Joe. It would appear that Mr. Wlasiuk is going to get a trial, but it isn't going to be today, and it isn't going to be from me. Let him get it from the appellate division. from there, I was like, I just wanted to barge through the door and just scream at him. I'm never going to get up to a trial in this county. Look at what my lawyer asked transport people to take me downstairs. Dave calmed me down. He says, relax, let Randy do his thing. And they turned around and when Randy came down, my lawyer, and he said, I said, did you figure it out? He goes, nothing yet. He goes, but you know you're coming back. If I say something right now, they're going to do everything in their power to hide what we just heard. And I had to go back up to Sika for another year and a half while I waited. It was my quick appeal process, but that's how that issue works with that juror. And I have to apologize on behalf of, I live in a zoo, which is prison, so you may be hearing background noise and people that are very rude and inconsiderate, but I didn't tell anybody I was having a very important phone call tonight.
That's okay, because that's real life. That's what you deal with every single day. So it doesn't bother me one bit, and I'm sure it doesn't bother any of my listeners because they know you're in prison. It's a nut house in there. Always got people hooting and hollering and doing crazy things. Whew.
Yeah.
So I noticed one thing that me and Dave had talked about, and also me and Heather had talked about when I did an interview with her, that I wanted you to kind of elaborate on, and if Heather wants to chime in too, that would be great as well. There was a scuba diver that went down to the vehicle that was in the lake or the pond. What happened?
Okay. Yes, there's what happened is at the time, I've never been in trouble before. So you get accused of such a crime or any crime to begin with. We were trying to find people to explain what had happened. And through the process, like I said, there was a small community. Someone had mentioned about scuba divers that dive in that lake. Now, I have to, for your listeners, Guilford Lake is a 130-acre lake.
Okay.
So it's, now motorboats are not allowed on it. Only electric motors or rowboat. They don't want to fish, they don't want the wildlife, they don't want nothing. So in the course of preparing to defend myself, I came across an individual who was a professional diver, and he was a Vermont State Police diver. And he had been a Vermont State Police diver for 10 years. And unfortunately, his specialty was recovering bodies from water. So having nothing to hide, I throughout my whole entire case and my entire 25 years, I believing the truth will set me free and transparency. I have always sought after the most experienced and most knowledgeable experts to counter the lies and the stuff that the state does. So we found this individual. It's in reports, but I'm not saying his name only because I don't know if I'm supposed to or if I'm allowed to or if he'd even want me to, but it's in my transcripts, it's in my reports. He was a scuba diver and he had done 68 dives, logged dives, official dives in Guilford Lake. And I have affidavit from him. I have all documentation from him to where he spoke of Burdock's in the lake where Patty and I had crashed into. And this dates all the way back to 1995. Now, the accident happened in 2002. So the lawyer I had at the time, if you could call him that, he thought this was the only piece of evidence we needed. He was gonna, bring this guy in, and this guy was gonna talk to the jury, and that was it. I was going home.
If only it worked that way.
Yeah. What had happened was, these are my words, and I'll stand behind them to the day I pass. They were so hell-bent on securing a wrongful conviction, turning the screws to me, that they just one dirty trick after another dirty trick after another dirty trick. So they would not allow this scuba diver, Vermont State Trooper of 10 years, testify based on his religious beliefs.
I'm sorry, wait a minute. What?
Every time that he testified in the official proceedings, okay, he had his religion. He would say, James chapter 5, verse 12, let your yes be your yes and let your no be your no. For if you say anything more or if you swear on the Bible, you're condemned to hell. The judge, every other time he testified in a proceeding, there was no problem. All they could say to him, are you prepared to tell the truth in everything that you're about to talk on today? And he would say, yes, I am. The judge didn't want this, which is a lot of people don't know. If they don't know this about the judicial system, you have to give the court a preview of what the witnesses are going to be offering. They already knew that this was detrimental to them and their case.
Right.
So they did everything in their power to keep him from testifying. So the best that I had was a report. They were troubled. They did everything in their power to, according to my first attorney, they did everything in my power to block that. That without the live person, you couldn't put the report in. So,
yeah,
and Heather and I discussed this a lot of times. Maybe she could explain it better because Heather's like a religious person, a scholar. Like she knows the Bible better than I do. So maybe she could explain it better.
Well, I can understand the not putting your right hand on the Bible and swearing. I can understand that, but this is the U.S., the good old United States of America, and it's called freedom of religion, and that's in the Constitution. And not only did they violate your constitutional rights, they violated his constitutional rights by not allowing him to do what he's done at previous trials.
And the problem with this was in a trial, very first trial, that was my only witness. Lawyer was so ineffective, so his league, that he literally he walked us in, and that was my witness. That was my a trial that had state had just piled on witness after witness after witness, and most of them weren't even of legitimate credentials. I mean, they have, for example, they have a guy that's claiming to be a botanist. To this day, you look him up. He's never been a botanist. He's not a botanist. He's a bug doctor. But he gets on the stand and he says, well, this isn't this and this isn't this. And that's not. So what I do is I get legitimate experts. Currently, right now, I have Dr. Capay out of Cornell. He's the leading botanist. Been working closely with him because we're trying to.
You have 1 minute left.
I got to call you right back.
All right, not a problem.
The caller has hung up.
Don't let these stories end just because this episode is over. If you believe in the work that we're doing, here's how you can help us right now. Follow Wickedly Judged wherever you listen to podcasts. Share this episode with someone who cares about truth and accountability. Follow us on social media. Leave a review. It's one of the fastest ways to help more people find these cases. If you happen to share a post on social media, tag us so we can thank you and amplify the conversation. And if you're able to support the mission directly, please donate to help fuel our investigations, advocacy, and education efforts. Or support the work by grabbing merchandise at wickedlyjudged.com. Every share, review, donation, and purchase helps us keep pushing for real justice reform. As always, stay informed, stay vigilant, and stay hopeful, because nobody deserves to be wickedly judged.